The day began as usual. Zafira Maliki woke up 15 minutes before her alarm clock rang, a habit she had developed over 30 years of working as a teacher. Ebenezer, her husband and rock for the past 27 years, was snoring peacefully beside her. She smiled as she looked at his serene face. His dark skin glistened in the morning sun, shining through the blinds of their bedroom in a quiet neighborhood in Buffalo. Zafira got up quietly and headed to the bathroom. Today, she had planned to go to the mall to buy a gift for her sister. On the way, she would drop Ebenezer off at his office. Her husband's car had been at the repair shop for 2 weeks. "Good morning, sweetheart," Ebenezer said as he entered the kitchen, where Zafira was already preparing breakfast. "You look beautiful." "Thank you, dear," she replied, handing him a cup of coffee. "Don't forget, I'll drop you off at work today. I'll pick you up after lunch." "Oh, don't worry," Ebenezer replied quickly. "I have an important meeting at around 4. I'll take a taxi." "You didn't mention a meeting," Zafira remarked, looking at her husband intently. "It was decided last night after you went to bed," he explained, without looking up from the morning paper. "A potential investor. I didn't want to wake you." After breakfast, they headed for the car. Ebenezer seemed slightly distracted, frequently checking his jacket and trouser pockets. "Did you lose something?" "No. Everything's fine," he replied quickly, "just checking that I've got everything." She dropped her husband off at the glass building where his office was located and drove to the shopping center. 3 hours flew by unnoticed. She chose a gift for her sister, bought herself a new dress, and had a snack in a small cafe. Returning to her car across the parking lot, Zafira noticed something familiar on the asphalt next to where their car had been parked. It was Ebenezer's wallet. Expensive leather with the initials EM, a gift from Zafira for their 20th anniversary. She picked it up, wondering how her husband hadn't noticed it was missing. The wallet must have fallen out of his pocket when he got out of the car. Zafira decided to check the contents before calling her husband. Inside, she found the usual items: credit cards, a small amount of cash, and his driver's license. But there were also items she had never seen before. In the photo compartment, behind a family picture, was a small Polaroid snapshot of a young black woman. She had a beautiful face with high cheekbones and determined eyes. On the back, in neat handwriting, was written, "Dad, we need to talk." Zafira frowned. Dad? She and Ebenezer didn't have children. A series of miscarriages in their youth had put an end to their dreams of a family of their own. Next, she found a key with a plastic keyring engraved with the number 23 and the name Moonlight Motel. Zafira knew every neighborhood in Buffalo, but she didn't remember a motel like that. In a separate pocket was a business card. Theodore Quasimodo, private investigator, and a phone number. Next to it was a piece of paper folded in 4. Unfolding it, Zafira saw that it was a birth certificate for Kamani Tower, born 28 years ago. The name of her husband was listed under father. Zafira's hands trembled. She read the document 3 times before she could believe what was written there. Ebenezer was the father of an adult daughter, and he had never told her about it. Why? And who was this girl's mother? Her thoughts were confused. She glanced at the clock. It was almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Ebenezer must have noticed his wallet was missing. It was strange that he hadn't called. Zafira took out her phone and dialed her husband's number. The phone rang, but no one answered. After the 5th ring, the voicemail kicked in. "Ebenezer, it's me," she said, trying to sound normal. "I found your wallet in the parking lot. Call me when you can." She hung up and sat in the car for a while, thinking. The idea of driving straight to her husband's office was tempting, but something held her back. Zafira glanced at the detective's business card. Perhaps he could shed some light on what was going on. 30 minutes later, she was parking near a dilapidated building on the outskirts of town. The detective's office was on the 2nd floor above a Chinese laundry. When Zafira entered, the smell of cigarette smoke and cheap coffee hit her nose. Theodore Quasimodo was a thin man in his 50s, with piercing eyes and deep wrinkles around his mouth. His suit had seen better days, but his tie was perfectly knotted. "How can I help you, ma'am?" he asked, gesturing for Zafira to sit down. "I found your business card in my husband's wallet," she began, taking out the card. "Ebenezer Maliki, did you work for him?" The detective looked at her closely, then nodded. "Yes, Mr. Maliki hired me about a month ago." but I'm not sure I can discuss the details with you, ma'am. I'm his wife, Zafira said firmly, and I found a photograph of a young woman and a birth certificate in his wallet. Quasimodo sighed and rubbed his nose. Listen, Mrs. Malachi, I understand your concern, but I have professional ethics. I can't just— I'll pay you, Zafira interrupted. Whatever my husband was paying you, I need to know what's going on. The detective paused, drumming his fingers on the table, then opened a drawer and took out a thin folder. Your husband hired me to follow a girl named Kimani Tower, 28 years old, works as a nurse at Buffalo General Hospital. He wanted to know where she lives, who she associates with, her daily routine. Why? Zafira asked, feeling a lump rise in her throat. He didn't tell me, replied Quasimodo. But I'm a professional, Mrs. Malachi, and I know when someone is afraid. Your husband was scared. Scared? Ebenezer? Zafira couldn't believe it. Her husband had always been the picture of confidence and calm. He asked me to let you know if the girl was seeing anyone or handing over any documents, the detective continued. I watched her for 2 weeks and didn't notice anything suspicious. She's just a normal young woman. She works, stays at home, and sometimes goes to a bar with her friends on Fridays. He paused. And then she disappeared. Disappeared? Zafira echoed. She didn't show up for work 3 days ago. She's not at home either. I informed your husband, and he was very concerned. He ordered me to stop surveillance. The detective handed her several photographs. Here is the report and the photos I took during surveillance. Zafira took the photos with a trembling hand. They showed the same girl as in the photo from the wallet. She was leaving the hospital in a nurse's uniform, sitting in a cafe with her friends, buying groceries at the supermarket. A normal life. In the last photo, Kimani was entering a small motel. Moonlight, read the neon sign above the entrance. That motel, Zafira began. She met your husband there twice, said Quasimodo. The first time was a week before she disappeared. The second was the day before. Zafira felt the room spin before her eyes. She took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure. Thank you, she said, taking out her checkbook. How much do I owe you? After paying the detective, Zafira went outside. Her head was buzzing with unanswered questions. She got into her car and took out her phone. Ebenezer hadn't called back. She dialed his number again, but there was no answer. A decision came suddenly. She still had the key to the motel room. Perhaps she would find the answers to her questions there. The Moonlight Motel was a shabby 2-story building on the outskirts of town. The neon sign flickered even in daylight, half the letters not working. Zafira parked in the far corner of the lot and sat for a while, gathering her thoughts. Then she got out of the car and headed for room 23. The key slipped easily into the lock. The room was small and featureless, a bed, a bedside table, and an old TV on the wall. But it was clear that someone had been there recently. A woman's handbag lay on the bed, and a small suitcase stood in the corner. Zafira cautiously opened the handbag. Inside were cosmetics, a wallet, keys, and a phone with a dead battery. In the wallet, she found a driver's license in the name of Kimani Tower, the same girl in the photos. She looked around the room more carefully. In the nightstand drawer, she found a leather-bound diary. Zafira hesitated before opening it. It was an invasion of someone's privacy. But she needed answers. The diary was filled with neat handwriting, the same as the inscription on the photo. Zafira began reading from the last entries. I met with my father again today. He refuses to acknowledge me publicly and says he will never tell his wife about me. He says it will destroy his family. But what about me? 28 years without a father. My mother died without ever receiving his recognition or support. He thinks he can just give me money and make me disappear. But I won't back down. Zafira gasped. She turned the page. He's getting more and more nervous. He said he hired someone to follow me. Why? Is he afraid I'll go to his wife? Maybe that's exactly what I should do. She deserves to know the truth about the man she married. The last entry was dated 3 days ago. I'm meeting my father tonight for the last time. I'm tired of this game. Either he acknowledges me or I'll tell his wife and colleagues everything myself. I deserve to bear his name. I deserve to be part of his life. The entries ended there. Zafira closed the diary, feeling tears running down her cheeks. The image of her perfect marriage was crumbling before her eyes. 27 years of her life with a man who had hidden his daughter from her, who had lied to her every day. She wiped her tears and put the diary in her bag. She had to go home and face her husband. But first, she wanted to find out what had happened to Kimani. Why hadn't she taken her things? Where had she gone after meeting Ebenezer? When she got home, Zafira turned on the TV. The local news had already started. She listened mechanically to the news report until she heard a name that made her freeze in her tracks. The Buffalo Police Department is asking for help in locating Kamana Tower, 28, who has been missing for 3 days, the anchor said. The girl was last seen entering the Moonlight Motel on Monday evening. If you have any information about her whereabouts, please contact the Buffalo Police Department. A photo of Kimani appeared on the screen, the same girl whose diary was now in Zafira's bag. Her husband's daughter had disappeared after meeting him, leaving all her belongings at the motel. What had happened that night? The sound of the front door opening snapped Zafira out of her trance. Ebenezer had returned home. He entered the living room with a tense expression on his face, which immediately turned into a smile when he saw Zafira. "Honey, you're home. I've been trying to reach you." Zafira turned off the TV, hiding the report about the missing Kimani from her husband. "Really?" she asked in an even voice. "I don't have any missed calls." Ebenezer frowned, took out his phone, and looked at the screen. "Strange. The network must be down." He walked over and kissed her on the cheek, as he had done every evening for the 27 years of their marriage. But today the gesture seemed false to Zafira. "How was your day?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "The usual. Lots of work." He loosened his tie. "How about you?" "I found your wallet," Zafira said, watching her husband's reaction closely. His face changed. For a split second, fear flashed in his eyes before he could hide it. "Really? Where?" "I've been looking for it all day." "In the parking lot at the mall," she replied. "It must have fallen out when you got out of the car this morning." Ebenezer breathed a sigh of relief. "You're my lifesaver. I was about to block my cards." "I left it on the dresser in the bedroom," Zafira said. Her husband immediately headed there. She quietly followed him and stopped in the doorway, watching him hurriedly open his wallet and check its contents. His shoulders tensed noticeably when he discovered that the photo and birth certificate were missing. "Is something wrong?" Zafira asked innocently. Ebenezer turned abruptly. "No, everything's fine." He tried to smile, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Just checking to see if everything's there." "And is everything there?" "Yes, of course," he replied too quickly. "Thank you for finding it." That evening, they ate dinner in tense silence. Zafira noticed her husband glancing at her with concern when he thought she wasn't looking. After dinner, he said he needed to work and retired to his home office. Zafira could hear him talking quietly on the phone, but she couldn't make out the words. She spent a sleepless night lying next to her husband, who was pretending to be asleep. In the morning, Ebenezer said he had an important meeting and would call a taxi. When he left, Zafira decided to return to the Moonlight Motel. She wanted to look around the room again, to find clues that might explain Kimani's disappearance. This time, she was more thorough. In the trash can, she found a crumpled piece of paper, the beginning of a letter. "Dear Zafira, my name is Kimani Tower, and I need to tell you the truth about your husband." The letter was cut off. Apparently, Kimani had changed her mind about writing it. Zafira folded the sheet and hid it in her pocket. Then she opened the girl's diary again, rereading the entries from the past months. "I found him. After so many years of searching, I finally found my father. Ebenezer Maliki, a successful businessman from Buffalo. Married, no children. Mom was right. He abandoned us when he found out she was pregnant. He said it would ruin his career. And now he has everything. Money, status, respect. Everything except a conscience." Zafira flipped through the pages, reading Kimani's story. The girl grew up with a single mother who died of cancer 2 years ago. Before she died, she told her daughter her father's name and the story of their brief romance. Kimani spent a year searching for Ebenezer and, when she found him, decided to claim her rights. "I met him today in a cafe. He was shocked to see me. At first he denied everything, then he tried to offer me money to keep quiet. He said his wife didn't know about our past relationship and that it would destroy their marriage. I told him I didn't want his money. I just wanted to be recognized as his daughter. He refused and threatened to take me to court if I pursued him, but I'm not giving up that easily. The following entries showed growing tension between father and daughter. Kamani threatened to tell everything to Ebenezer's wife and his business partners. He, in turn, began to pay her for her silence, but the girl demanded more: recognition. He agreed to meet at a motel. He said he wanted to discuss the terms. I think he finally realized that I'm serious. I won't be his secret anymore. That was the last entry before their final meeting. Zafira closed the diary, feeling nauseous. Not only had her husband hidden his daughter's existence, but he had also paid her to keep quiet. And now the girl had disappeared after meeting with him. Looking around the room, she found a small voice recorder behind the bedside table. Pressing the play button, Zafira heard voices: Ebenezer and Kamani. "I'm tired of these games," the girl said. "Either you acknowledge me as your daughter, or tomorrow I'm going to your wife. Think carefully." Ebenezer's voice sounded cold. "I can make your life very difficult." "Are you threatening me?" "You haven't been my father for 28 years. For 28 years, my mother raised me alone, working 2 jobs. Meanwhile, you built your career and reputation. Do you think I'm afraid of you? I have nothing to lose." The recording was interrupted by the sound of breaking glass, followed by the sound of a struggle and Kamani's scream. Then there was silence. Zafira's hands trembled. She grabbed the tape recorder and quickly left the motel, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to go to the police, but what would she tell them? That she suspected her own husband of being involved in the girl's disappearance? She had no direct evidence, only a diary and an ambiguous recording. When she got home, Zafira hid the evidence she had found in her work bag. She needed time to think. She called the school where she taught and said she was sick. Then she turned on her computer and started searching for information about the missing Kamani Tower. News sites reported scant details. 28 years old, a nurse, didn't show up for work. Colleagues raised the alarm. The police were searching, but there were few leads. As she pondered, Zafira suddenly remembered a name mentioned by Detective Quasimodo, Detective Naja Onyx of the Buffalo Police Department. She found the number for the police station and called, asking for Detective Onyx. "Detective Onyx speaking," a low female voice answered. "Hello?" Zafira began. "My name is Zafira Malaki. I would like to talk to you about a missing girl, Kamani Tower." There was a short pause. "Do you have any information about her whereabouts?" "Not exactly," Zafira replied. "But I have clues that may be related to her disappearance. I'd prefer to discuss it in person." "Of course," said the detective. "Can you come to the station today?" "Yes, I'll be there in an hour." Zafira hung up and took a deep breath. She was about to betray her husband, the man she had spent almost 3 decades with. But could she remain silent, knowing that he might be involved in the disappearance of his own daughter? She gathered all the evidence she had found into a bag and headed for the exit. Opening the door, Zafira bumped into Ebenezer, who was standing in the doorway with a key in his hand. "Are you leaving?" he asked, looking at her intently. "Yes, I need to," she hesitated. "Meet my sister. She's not well." Ebenezer frowned. "That's strange. I just spoke to her on the phone. She didn't mention anything about being ill." Zafira's heart skipped a beat. He was lying. Her sister lived in another state, and they hadn't spoken in months because of an old quarrel. "You spoke to Aisha? Why?" "I wanted to know if she'd seen you," Ebenezer replied, entering the house. "I was worried. You weren't answering your phone." "My phone was on all day," Zafira said, gripping the handle of her bag tighter. "Maybe it was a bad connection," Ebenezer shrugged. "Where are you going with that bag? I told you to my sisters." "Zafira," his voice grew harsher, "we both know you haven't spoken to Aisha in almost a year. Who are you really going to see?" She felt a chill of fear. Ebenezer had never spoken to her like that before. "It's none of your business," she replied, trying to sound confident. "I'm a grown woman, and I don't have to report to you on my every move." Ebenezer took a step forward, and Zafira instinctively stepped back. "What's in your bag, dear?" he asked with a fake smile. "Did you find something with my wallet? Something you shouldn't have?" I don't know what you're talking about, Zafira lied, taking another step back. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, Ebenezer said, closing in on her. You were at that motel, weren't you? Did you find her things? Zafira felt her heart pounding in her chest. How did he know? Have you been following me? She gasped. I'm just protecting my family, he replied. Our family, Zafira. Everything I've done has been for us. For us? Her voice trembled with anger. You've been lying to me for 28 years. You have a daughter, Ebenezer, a daughter you never told me about. His face contorted with rage. She tried to ruin our lives. She blackmailed me, demanded money, threatened to tell you everything. And where is she now? Zafira asked, feeling a chill run down her spine. What did you do to her, Ebenezer? He froze for a moment, then his face became impenetrable. I don't know what you're talking about. If the girl is gone, that's not my problem. I heard the recording, Zafira said. Your last meeting at the motel. Ebenezer paled. Give me the tape recorder, he demanded. I don't have it, Zafira lied. I gave it to the police. It was a risky lie, but it worked. Ebenezer backed away, fear flashing in his eyes. You don't understand what you've done, he whispered. You've ruined everything. You ruined everything, Zafira replied, heading for the door. With your lies, with your secrets. Ebenezer grabbed her arm. Where are you going? Let go of me, she said firmly. We need to talk, Zafira. I can explain everything. Really? She looked him defiantly in the eyes. Can you explain why your daughter disappeared after meeting you? Why all her things were left at the motel? His grip loosened, and Zafira took advantage of the moment to break free. She quickly left the house and got into her car, locking the doors. Ebenezer jumped out after her, but she was already starting the engine. Zafira! He shouted, banging on the window. Don't do this! You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. She didn't listen. As she pulled out onto the road, Zafira glanced in the rearview mirror. Ebenezer was standing on the driveway watching her go. Then he took out his phone and started dialing. Who was he calling? What was he going to do? Zafira didn't want to know. She was on her way to the police station to see Detective Nays Onyx. With every passing minute, she became more convinced that her husband was involved in Kamani's disappearance, and she had to help find the girl before it was too late, if it wasn't already. At the police station, Zafira was asked to wait in a small visitor's room. 15 minutes later, a tall, middle-aged black woman with short hair and piercing eyes entered. Mrs. Malachi? I'm Detective Naja Onyx, she said, extending her hand. You said you had information about Keeman Tower. Zafira nodded and opened her bag. I think my husband is involved in her disappearance, she said, and began laying out the evidence on the table. A diary, a voice recorder, a birth certificate, and a photograph. Keeman was his daughter from a previous relationship. She was blackmailing him, demanding recognition and money. They met at the Moonlight Motel on the night she disappeared. Detective Onyx listened carefully to Zafira's story, taking notes in her notebook. These are serious allegations, Mrs. Malachi, she said finally. You understand that you're accusing your husband of possibly harming his own daughter? I understand, Zafira replied quietly. But I heard the recording of their argument, and I saw how he reacted when he realized I knew the truth. The detective turned on the recorder and listened to the recording. Her face remained impassive, but a hard gleam appeared in her eyes. This definitely warrants investigation, she said, turning off the recording. I'll have someone follow your husband and get a search warrant for the motel room. In the meantime, Mrs. Malachi, you'd better not go home. Do you have a place to stay? I can go to a friend's house, Zafira replied. Ebenezer doesn't know her. All right, the detective nodded. One more thing. Your husband may be dangerous. If he contacts you, don't tell him where you are or that you gave us the evidence, and let me know immediately. Zafira nodded. Leaving the station, she felt a strange emptiness. In one day, her life had been turned upside down. The man she had loved for almost 30 years turned out to be completely different from the person she thought he was. And somewhere out there was Kamani, the girl who could have been her stepdaughter if Ebenezer hadn't hidden the truth all these years. Zafira spent a restless night in her friend Lucrezia's guest bedroom. She couldn't sleep. her mind replaying fragments of the last few days, the wallet she had found, Kamani's diary, Ebenezer's threatening look. How could she not have noticed all these years that she was living with a man capable of such deception? What else had he been hiding from her? In the morning, as soon as it was light, Zafira checked her phone. 15 missed calls from her husband, and a dozen messages ranging from apologies to threats. "Zafira, please come home. We can talk about everything. You don't understand what you're doing. If you went to the police, you made a huge mistake. I'll find you wherever you are." The last message made her shudder. She showed the phone to Lucrezia. "Do you think he can really track me down?" Zafira asked. "I don't know." Lucrezia frowned. "But it's better to be safe. Let's buy you a new phone." After breakfast, they went to an electronics store, where Zafira bought a simple push-button phone with a prepaid SIM card. She turned off her smartphone and put it in her bag. "What are you going to do next?" Lucrezia asked when they returned to her apartment. "I don't know," Zafira replied honestly. "I gave all the evidence to Detective Onyx. Now all we can do is wait." But sitting around doing nothing was unbearable. After lunch, Zafira called the detective. "I don't have any news for you, Mrs. Maliki," said Naja Onyx. "The investigation has just begun. We got a search warrant for the motel and are checking your husband's alibi for the night of Kiman's disappearance." "Is there anything I can do to help?" asked Zafira. There was a pause. "Actually, yes," the detective finally said. "Do you still have access to your husband's belongings? His computer? Personal items?" "No, I didn't take anything from the house except clothes," Zafira replied. "Do you know the passwords to his accounts? Email? Banking apps?" Zafira thought for a moment. "I know some of them. We shared a family computer and he sometimes asked me to check his email when he was away." "That could be useful," said the detective. "We need to track his movements on the night Kiman disappeared. He may have used a credit card or phone that could pinpoint his location." "I'll help however I can," Zafira said firmly. She spent the next few hours remembering and writing down all the passwords she knew. Ebenezer had been careless in this regard, often using the same combinations for different accounts, usually their wedding date or Zafira's birthday. The irony of the situation did not escape her. The man who had hidden his secret daughter used memorable dates from his marriage as passwords. That evening, Zafira called the detective again and dictated everything she could remember. Naja Onyx thanked her and advised her not to leave her safe house. "We have some leads," she said, "but it's too early to draw conclusions. Be careful, Mrs. Maliki. Your husband is an influential man in the city. He has many connections." The next 2 days were spent in agonizing anticipation. Zafira did not leave Lucrezia's apartment, fearing that Ebenezer might track her down. He continued to call and text her old phone, but she ignored all attempts to contact her. On the third day, a call came from an unknown number. It was Detective Onyx. "Mrs. Maliki, we have news." Her voice sounded tense. "We found a body believed to be that of Kamani Tower, in Glen Forest Park, not far from the eastern border of the city." Zafira felt nausea rising in her throat. "Are you sure it's her?" "There has been no official identification yet, but the items found on the body match the description of what Kamani was wearing on the day she disappeared," the detective replied. "I need you to come to the station. There are questions we need to discuss in person." An hour later, Zafira was sitting in the same small office where she had first met the detective. Naja Onyx looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes, but her gaze was determined. "We're preparing an arrest warrant for your husband," she said without preamble. "We have evidence linking him to the location where the body was found. Traffic camera footage shows his car heading toward the forest park on the night of Kamani's disappearance. In addition, his phone's geolocation confirms that he was there between 2 and 3 in the morning." "My God," Zafira whispered, covering her face with her hands. "That's not all," the detective continued. "We found traces of blood in his garage that match the victim's blood type. He must have transported the body in the trunk of his own car." Zafira looked up. "Did you search our house?" "With a warrant, of course." Onyx nodded. "The passwords you gave us were very helpful. We gained access to his email and found messages between him and Kamani. She threatened to reveal his secret if he didn't acknowledge her publicly and pay her a large sum of money. So she really was blackmailing him." Zafira said quietly. Essentially, yes, the detective agreed, but that doesn't justify murder. Zafira nodded, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. What am I supposed to do now? We're arresting your husband tonight, Onyx said. But to build a strong case, we'll need your help. We need testimony about his behavior in the days after Kamana disappeared. Any odd behavior you noticed. Zafira took a deep breath and began to tell her story. She told her how tense and irritable Ebenezer had been in the days leading up to Kamana's disappearance. How she had discovered that he had been washing clothes in the middle of the night, something he had never done before. How he had left the house several times without explanation and returned late. He also burned some papers in the backyard, she recalled. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now. The detective wrote everything down, asking clarifying questions from time to time. When Zafira finished, Onyx closed her notebook. Thank you for your cooperation, Mrs. Maliki. This will be very helpful to the investigation. What happens now? Zafira asked. We're going to arrest him on suspicion of murder. If everything goes according to plan, he'll never see the light of day again. The detective paused. But I must warn you, it will be a long and painful process. The case will be highly publicized, given your husband's position in society. You will have to testify in court. Zafira nodded. I understand. I'm ready to do whatever it takes. Good. Naja Onyx stood up. Now you'd better get back to a safe place. We'll let you know when we make the arrest. Zafira was about to leave when she stopped. Detective, can I ask you something? Of course. How did she die? Kiman? Onyx's face darkened. Preliminary reports indicate strangulation, but the final autopsy results will be in later. Zafira closed her eyes, imagining the last moments of the girl's life. Did she struggle? Did she call for help? Did she realize that her own father was taking her life? Thank you for your honesty, she said, and left the office. Returning to Lucrezia, Zafira told her everything she had learned. Her friend hugged her, unable to find words of comfort. What words could ease such pain? Late in the evening, Detective Onyx called. Ebenezer Maliki has been arrested, she reported. He is being held without bail. How did he react? Zafira asked. Calm, the detective replied. Too calm, I'd say. He didn't look surprised or scared. It was as if he had been expecting this. Did he confess? No, he denies all charges. He hired a lawyer, one of the best in the state. But we have a strong case, Mrs. Maliki. I don't think he'll get out of this. After the call, Zafira sat motionless for a long time, staring out the window at the city at night. 27 years of marriage, thousands of days and nights together, and she never really knew the man she shared her life with. How could he live with this lie? How could he look her in the eye every day, knowing that somewhere his daughter was growing up, a daughter he refused to acknowledge? In the morning, Zafira decided to do what she had thought impossible just yesterday: visit the prison. She had to see Ebenezer, hear the truth from him, even if it broke her heart completely. After obtaining permission from Detective Onyx, she went to the county jail. The procedure took almost an hour: document checks, a personal search, and instructions from the guards. Finally, she was led to the visiting room, a small room with plastic chairs and a table divided by a transparent partition. Ebenezer appeared a few minutes later, dressed in prison garb, with handcuffs on his wrists. He looked haggard and aged, but he carried himself with the same dignity as always. When he saw Zafira, he smiled slightly. I knew you would come, he said, sitting down across from her. Why? She asked. Just one word, but it contained so many questions. Ebenezer understood. It was 29 years ago, he began. I was young, ambitious. I met her mother at a conference in Chicago. It was a brief affair, nothing serious. When she told me she was pregnant, I offered her money for an abortion. She refused and disappeared from my life. He paused. And then I met you and everything changed. I fell in love, truly. We built a life together and I decided that the past should stay in the past. Did you ever think about your child? Zafira asked quietly. Sometimes, he admitted, but what could I do? I didn't know where they were or if the girl was even alive. And then so many years passed. And she found you. Yes, his face contorted. She appeared out of nowhere with her demands and threats. She said she would tell you, my partners, everyone. I offered her money, a lot of money, but it wasn't enough. She wanted to destroy my life, our life, Zafira. That's why you killed her? Ebenezer fell silent, looking away. It was an accident, he finally said. We had a fight in the motel. She was screaming, threatening me. I just wanted her to shut up. I put my hand over her mouth and held her by the neck, and... He swallowed. I didn't realize how hard I was squeezing. When I let go, she wasn't breathing. Zafira felt nausea rising in her throat. You strangled your own daughter. I panicked, Ebenezer continued, as if he hadn't heard her. I wrapped the body in a blanket and took it to my car. I didn't know what to do. In the end, I drove to the forest park and buried her there. I thought no one would ever find out. But I found the wallet, Zafira said. Yes, my damn wallet, he smiled bitterly. I searched the whole house, the car, the office. I couldn't understand where I'd lost it. And then you came back with it, and I could see from your face that you'd found something. You could have just told me the truth, said Zafira. About your daughter, about your past relationship, I would have understood. Really? He looked her in the eyes. You would have forgiven me for hiding a child from you for almost 30 years? For not acknowledging her? Not helping her? He shook his head. No, Zafira, you wouldn't have forgiven me. You would have left me. Maybe, she admitted. But your daughter would be alive. Ebenezer lowered his head. I know. Not a day goes by that I don't think about it. I killed my own flesh and blood, Zafira. How can I live with that? You won't have to, she replied coldly. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Probably, he agreed. But I want you to know that all these years with you have been the best of my life. My love for you was real, despite the lies. Zafira stood up. I'm filing for divorce, Ebenezer, and I'll testify against you in court. Everything we had died with your daughter. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Zafira, what are you going to do now? She turned back one last time. I'm going to start over, without you and your lies. As she left the prison, Zafira took a deep breath of fresh air. Inside, she felt empty, but strangely, she also felt relieved. The truth, no matter how terrible, was liberating. Detective Onyx was waiting for her in the car. Are you okay? She asked. No, Zafira replied honestly. But I will be in time. Did he confess? Yes, he said it was an accident. Zafira shook her head. But that doesn't matter, does it? He still killed her and tried to hide the body. That will make the prosecutor's job easier, said the detective. With his confession and the evidence we have, he'll get life. Zafira nodded. What now? Now there will be a trial, Onyx replied. It will take several months. You'll have to testify, relive it all. It won't be easy. I can do it, Zafira said. I owe it to Kamana. I couldn't be a mother to her when she was alive, but I can get her justice now. They drove through the streets of Buffalo, past familiar places that now seemed foreign to Zafira. She had lived here for 27 years with a man she didn't know at all. A man capable of renouncing his own child and then killing him. How could she go on living with that knowledge? It's not your fault, the detective said, as if reading her mind. People are good at hiding their true nature, especially from those who love them. I should have seen the signs, Zafira objected. What signs? Onyx shook her head. He was a model husband, a respected businessman. No problems with the law, no strange behavior. You couldn't have known. Perhaps the detective was right, but that didn't lessen the pain. Not only from the betrayal, but also from the thought of the girl who was growing up without a father, of the woman who sought recognition and found death, of the family Zafira never had, but could have had. In front of Lucrezia's house, Zafira asked the detective to stop. Thank you for everything you've done, she said. Just doing my job, replied Onyx. But if you need anything, call me anytime. Zafira nodded and got out of the car. Lucrezia met her at the door, hugged her silently, and led her inside. No words were necessary. Her friend understood that no words could heal the wound caused by betrayal and loss. That evening, sitting by the window with a cup of tea, Zafira watched the sun set and thought about Kimani. She thought about the girl she had never known, but with whom she was now connected in the most tragic way. She thought about the life that could have been different if Ebenezer had found the courage to acknowledge his daughter and tell her the truth. But you can't change the past. All that remained was the future, uncertain, frightening, but still her own. Zafira didn't know what the coming days and months would bring, but she was sure of one thing: she would never live a lie again. No matter how bitter the truth was, she preferred it to the sweet deception that had cost an innocent person their life. The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. The number was unfamiliar. "Mrs. Malachi?" a young woman's voice asked. "My name is Amara Tower. I'm Kamani's cousin. Detective Onyx gave me your number. I wanted to talk to you about the funeral." Zafira felt a lump rise in her throat, another reality she would have to face. "Of course," she said. "I'll do everything I can." Hanging up, she thought about the strange irony of fate. The family that Ebenezer had tried so desperately to preserve had been destroyed by his own actions, and Zafira, who had lost her husband, had unexpectedly found new connections with the family of the girl who could have been her stepdaughter. Life went on despite everything, and in this new life, the truth, no matter how painful, became her guiding compass.